3 days passed on the station. 3 days of meetings and ceremonies, and more food than Taiho had ever seen in his life. The Valorans treated him like a hero. Other species came from distant parts of the station just to look at him. Some wanted to shake his hand. Others wanted to take pictures with him. A few just stared, like they were trying to understand what made him different. Taiho did not like any of it. He preferred quiet spaces and simple work. All this attention made him tired. On the morning of the 4th day, the council gathered in the Great Hall. It was a room even bigger than the one where the cipher had been kept. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Thousands of aliens sat in curved seats that rose up like mountains on all sides. In the center of the room was a platform. Yuna stood on that platform, wearing the formal clothes of an Earth diplomat. Beside her stood Taiho, wearing the same simple work clothes he always wore. He had refused to change into anything fancy. High Counselor Mira stood before them, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. "Today we welcome a new species to the Galactic Alliance," she said. "Earth and its people have proven themselves worthy of a place among us. Not through power, not through technology, but through something far more valuable. The ability to see what others cannot see." She turned to face the crowd. Thousands of alien faces looked back at her. For 40 years, the eternal cipher stood as a symbol of our limitations. A reminder that even the greatest minds have boundaries. We accepted this. We even took pride in it, using our failure as proof that some things are simply impossible. Her voice grew softer, but it still reached every ear. We were wrong. The puzzle was not impossible. We had simply forgotten how to look. We had become trapped in our own intelligence, so busy thinking that we forgot how to see. She gestured toward Taiho. This human showed us the truth. Not with mathematics or computers or great theories. He showed us with simple eyes and an open mind. He looked at our greatest challenge and said, "Just turn it upside down." And in that moment, everything changed. The room was completely silent. Thousands of beings from dozens of worlds, all watching a single human in work clothes. "The Keth left us a message," Myra continued. "They warned us that knowledge without perspective is dangerous. That the species which survive are not the strongest or the smartest, but the ones who can change how they see. Today, we honor that wisdom. And we honor the human who reminded us of it." She turned back to Yuna and Taiho. "Yuna of Earth, do you accept a place on the Galactic Council, speaking for your species in all matters of the Alliance?" Yuna bowed her head. "I accept." "And Taiho of Earth, do you accept the position of advisor to the Council, helping us see what we cannot see ourselves?" Everyone looked at Taiho. He had been thinking about this for 3 days. He had walked the halls of the station. He had looked out at the stars. He had talked to Yuna late into the night. And he had finally made a decision. "No," he said. The room erupted in whispers. Mira's eyes went wide. "No?" she asked. Taiho shook his head. "I am honored, truly, but I am not meant to be an advisor. I am not meant to sit in great rooms and help leaders make decisions. That is not who I am." "Then who are you?" Mira asked. Taiho smiled. It was the same gentle smile he had worn when he solved a cipher. "I am a mechanic," he said. "I fix things. And there is a lot of fixing that needs to be done. Not just here, but everywhere. Ships that are broken. Machines that do not work. Problems that seem impossible, but really are not." He looked out at the crowd. All those alien faces, watching him with confusion and curiosity. "I will travel," he said. "I will go to different worlds. I will fix what needs to be fixed. And maybe, along the way, I will help others see things differently too. Not as an advisor, just as a mechanic who asks simple questions. Myra was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "You wish to be a wandering fixer," she said, "moving through the galaxy, solving problems as you find them." "Yes, that is an unusual request." Taeho shrugged. "I am an unusual person." The old counselor, who had been so hostile before, stood up from his seat. "I think it is a good request," he said. His voice was different now. There was respect in it. "Advisors sit in rooms and talk. This human wants to go out and do. Perhaps that is better. Perhaps the galaxy needs people who fix things, not just people who talk about fixing things." Other counselors nodded. Slowly, the whispers turned to murmurs of agreement. Myra raised her hand, and the room went quiet. "Very well," she said. "Taeho of Earth, we grant your request. You will be given a ship. A new ship, not the old one that brought you here. You will be given resources and clearance to travel anywhere in the Alliance. And wherever you go, you will carry the title of friend to the Council. All doors will be open to you." Taeho bowed his head. "Thank you. That is more than I deserve." "It is less than you deserve," Myra said. "But it is what you want. And we have learned that sometimes the simplest answer is the right one." The ceremony continued. Yuna was given the formal symbols of her position. Speeches were made. Hands were shaken. But through all of it, Taeho stood quietly, thinking about the future. Later, when the ceremony was over and the crowds had gone, Taeho and Yuna stood together in a quiet corridor. Through the window, they could see the ship that had been given to Taeho. It was beautiful, sleek and silver, with engines that hummed with quiet power. "Are you sure about this?" Yuna asked. "You could have anything. Wealth, power, fame. Well, I choose to be a wandering mechanic." Taeho watched the ship. His ship now. Do you remember what Myra said about the Keth? About how they discovered that the species which survive are the ones who can see differently. "Yes, I have been thinking about that," Taeho said. "And I think maybe humans have always been good at seeing differently. We are young. We do not know what is impossible yet. So we try things that older species would never try." He turned to look at Yuna. "But it is easy to forget that. It is easy to become like the Valorans, so smart that we stop seeing simple things. I do not want that to happen to me. I want to stay simple. I want to keep asking stupid questions. Because sometimes the stupid questions are the right ones." Yuna felt tears in her eyes again. This time, she knew why. She was proud. Proud of this strange, simple man who had changed the galaxy without even trying. "You are wiser than you know," she said. Taeho laughed. "I am hungry. That is what I know. I missed lunch because of all those speeches." Yuna laughed too. Some things never change. They stood together in the quiet corridor, watching the stars. Tomorrow, Yuna would begin her work as a council member, speaking for all of Earth. Tomorrow, Taeho would fly off into the galaxy, looking for broken things to fix. Their paths would split, but they would always be connected by this moment. By the day when a mechanic solved an impossible puzzle and reminded the universe that sometimes the best answer is the simplest one. "Will you visit?" Yuna asked. "Of course," Taeho said. "Whenever my ship breaks down, I will come here to fix it. And I will bring you strange foods from strange worlds." "I would like that." They were quiet for a while longer. The station hummed around them, full of life and light and the promise of tomorrow. Finally, Taeho spoke. "Thank you for bringing me on this mission. I know you only wanted someone to fix the engine, but I am glad I came." Yuna smiled. "I am glad too. You changed everything." "No," Taeho said. "I just looked at things differently. The change was already waiting to happen. It just needed someone to see it." He walked toward the airlock that led to his new ship. At the door, he turned back. "Remember what I said about fixing things," he said. "About how everything is an engine. Everything has parts that work together. Everything has a way it wants to move." Yuna nodded. "The galaxy is an engine too," Taeho said. "All these species, all these worlds, all working together. Sometimes it gets stuck. Sometimes it forgets how to move. But it can be fixed. It just needs people who are willing to look at it differently." Then he smiled one last time, stepped through the airlock, and was gone. Yuna watched as his ship powered up, lifted off, and flew out into the endless darkness between the stars. She watched until it was just a tiny point of light, and then until it was nothing at all. Somewhere out there, a mechanic was traveling through the galaxy, ready to fix whatever was broken. Ready to ask simple questions. Ready to tilt his head and see what no one else could see. And the universe, vast and old and full of mysteries, was a little bit better for it. The end. The room they gave Taeho was bigger than his entire apartment back on Earth. The bed was soft and huge. The walls changed color when he looked at them, shifting through gentle blues and greens. A window showed the stars outside, millions of tiny lights scattered across the darkness. But Taeho did not care about any of this. He sat at his small table, eating the food the Valorans had brought him. It was strange food. Purple fruits that tasted like honey, meat that melted on his tongue, bread that was somehow warm, even though it had been sitting out for an hour. Yuna sat across from him, watching him eat. She had not touched her own food. Her mind was too full of questions. "How did you know?" she asked. "Really? How did you figure it out?" Taeho chewed slowly and swallowed. "I told you. It just looked wrong. Like when you see a picture that is hanging crooked on a wall. You know something is off, even if you cannot explain why." "But 40 years," Yuna said. "Their best computers. Their greatest minds. And you solved it in 10 minutes by just looking at it." Taeho shrugged. Maybe that was the problem. They thought too much. Sometimes thinking gets in the way of seeing. There was a soft chime at the door. Yuna stood up and pressed the button to open it. Eye Counselor Myra stood outside. Her face was different from before. The coldness was gone. In its place was something complicated. Respect, maybe, but also confusion. And a little bit of fear. "May I come in?" she asked. Yuna stepped aside. "Of course." Mira walked into the room. She looked at Taeho, who was still eating his purple fruit. "The translation is complete," Myra said. Yuna felt her heart beat faster. "What does it say?" Myra did not answer right away. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Her reflection floated in the glass like a ghost. "The species that created the cipher was called the Keth," she said. "They lived millions of years ago. They were not the oldest civilization, but they were perhaps the wisest. They explored the entire galaxy. They learned things that no one else has learned before or since. What happened to them?" Taeho asked through a mouthful of bread. "They disappeared," Myra said. "No one knows why or how. One day they were everywhere. The next day they were gone. They left behind only ruins. And a cipher." She turned to face them. Her eyes were troubled. "The cipher was not a puzzle," she said. "It was a message. A warning. And a gift." Yuna sat down slowly. "What kind of warning?" Mira was quiet for a moment. Then she began to speak, her voice soft but clear. "The Keth discovered something. In all their travels, in all their studies, they found a pattern. The species that survived longest in the universe were not the strongest or the smartest. They were the ones who could see things differently. The ones who could change their perspective. The ones who did not get trapped in their own way of thinking." She looked at Taeho. They called it the first wisdom, the ability to step back, to question what you believe, to look at a problem from a new angle. And the gift? Yuna asked. The cipher contains knowledge, Myra said. Technology, science, answers to questions we have not even thought to ask yet. But the Keth hid it behind a simple test. A test that required the first wisdom to pass. Tejo put down his bread. They wanted to make sure that whoever opened it could see differently. Yes, Myra said, because the knowledge inside is powerful. Too powerful to give to a species that is stuck in one way of thinking. Such a species would use it badly. They would destroy themselves. Or others. The room was quiet. Outside the window, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the great revelation happening in this small room. We failed that test, Myra said. Her voice was heavy with shame. The Valorans, the oldest members of the Alliance, the ones who call ourselves wise. We could not see what a human mechanic saw in 10 minutes. It does not mean you are foolish, Tejo said. It just means you are looking the wrong way. Everyone does that sometimes. Myra shook her head. You do not understand. For 40 years, we told the galaxy that the cipher was unsolvable. We used it as proof of our superiority. We said that even we, with all our intelligence, could not open it. We made others feel small because they could not solve it either. And all along, the answer was right there. We were just too proud to see it. She walked to Tejo and did something that shocked Yuna. She bowed. The High Counselor of the Valoran Council bowed to a human mechanic. You have taught me something today, Mira said. Something I should have learned long ago. Intelligence is not the same as wisdom. Knowledge is not the same as understanding. And sometimes the simplest mind can see what the greatest mind cannot. Tejo looked uncomfortable. Please stand up. I did not do anything special. I just looked at a puzzle. No, Myra said, straightening. You did something very special. You reminded us that we do not know everything, that there are other ways to see the universe. That is a gift more valuable than anything the cipher contains. Yuna felt tears in her eyes, but she did not know why. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was relief. Maybe it was just the strangeness of the moment, the feeling that something important had changed. What happens now? She asked. With Earth and the Alliance? Myra's expression changed. Something like a smile crossed her face. The council met while the translation was being completed. We have made a decision. Earth will not just join the Alliance. Earth will be given a special status. A place on the council itself. Yuna's mouth fell open. A place on the council? But Earth is so young. We have been in space for only 200 years. Age does not matter, Myra said. What matters is what you can contribute. And today, a human showed us that your species has something we need. Something we had forgotten. The ability to see differently. She looked at Tejo. The council would like to offer you a position. A new role that has never existed before. Advisor to the council on matters of perspective. You would help us solve problems that we cannot solve ourselves. You would teach us to look at the universe the way you do. Tejo blinked. Me? But I am just a mechanic. You were a mechanic, Myra said. Now you are the human who solved the eternal cipher. Now you are proof that there is value in simplicity, in seeing what is right in front of you. Tejo looked at Yuna. His eyes were wide and uncertain. He did not know what to do. All his life, he had fixed things. That was his purpose. That was who he was. Now he was being asked to become something else. Something bigger. Can I think about it? He asked. Myra nodded. Of course. Take all the time you need. But know this. The Council values you. The Alliance values you. Whatever you decide, you will always be welcome here." She walked to the door, then stopped and looked back. "The knowledge in the cipher will take years to understand, maybe decades. But because of you, we now have access to it. Because of you, the galaxy has changed. I hope you understand how important that is." Then she was gone. Yuna and Taeho sat in silence for a long time. The stars continued to shine outside the window. The food on the table grew cold. Finally, Taeho spoke. "I do not know if I can do this. I do not know how to advise great leaders. I do not know how to change the galaxy. I just know how to fix things." Yuna reached across the table and took his hand. "Maybe that is exactly what the galaxy needs. Someone who knows how to fix things. Someone who can look at a broken situation and find a simple solution." Taeho thought about this. He thought about the cipher spinning in the air. He thought about all the great minds that had failed. He thought about how he had just tilted his head and seen what they could not see. "Maybe," he said slowly, "we are all just trying to fix things. In our own way. Maybe that is what life is. Finding broken things and making them work again." Yuna smiled. "That sounds like wisdom to me." Taeho laughed softly. "It sounds like something my father would say. He was a mechanic too, you know? He always said that the secret to fixing anything is to stop thinking about how complicated it is and start looking at what it is actually doing. Your father sounds like a wise man." "He was a simple man," Taeho said. "But yes, I think he was wise." Outside the window, a ship passed by, its lights blinking in the darkness. Somewhere in the station, the cipher sat in its chamber, its secrets slowly being revealed. And in this small room, two humans sat together, thinking about what the future might hold. The galaxy was bigger than either of them could imagine. But somehow, in this moment, it did not feel so frightening. It felt like a puzzle waiting to be solved. And if there was one thing Taeho knew, it was that every puzzle had an answer. You just had to look at it the right way. The room was completely still. No one moved. No one breathed. The words Taeho had spoken hung in the air like smoke after a fire. High Counselor Mira took a step forward. Her black eyes were wide. In all her years leading the Valoran Council, she had never felt this way. It was a strange mix of hope and disbelief. "You see the answer?" she asked. Her voice was barely louder than a whisper. Taeho nodded. He was still looking at the cipher with that gentle smile on his face. He did not look proud or excited. He just looked calm, like everything suddenly made sense. "Show us," the old counselor said. His voice was rough. He did not believe Taeho. He could not believe him. The idea that a human mechanic could solve what 12 civilizations could not was impossible. It had to be a joke or a trick. Taeho walked around the platform to where the holographic controls were. He had watched the Valorans use them earlier. The controls were simple enough. You touched the light, and the cipher moved. "May I?" He asked Myra. Myra nodded slowly. She did not know what else to do. Tae-Ho reached out and touched the control. The cipher stopped spinning. It hung in the air, frozen in one of its many shapes. It looked like a twisted star with too many points. "Your computers looked at this puzzle for 40 years, Taeho said. They tried every combination, every pattern, every mathematical solution. Yes? Yes, Myra said. And they always looked at it from this direction." Taeho pointed at the cipher. "From the front, from the side, from above, from below. Always with the same orientation." "Orientation does not matter," the old counselor said. "Mathematics is not affected by direction. The numbers are the same whether you look at them forwards or backwards." Taeho shook his head. "But this is not just mathematics. This is a puzzle. And puzzles are not always about numbers. Sometimes they're about how you see things. He touched the control again. The cipher began to rotate. But it was not the wild spinning from before. This time, it moved slowly, smoothly. Tejo was turning it himself. "When I fix an engine," Tejo said, "sometimes I cannot find the problem. I look and look, but nothing seems wrong. Do you know what I do then?" No one answered. "I turn it upside down," Tejo said. "I look at it from an angle I have not tried before. And often, the problem becomes obvious. It was always there. I just could not see it because I was looking the wrong way." He turned the cipher more. It was now at a 45-degree angle from where it had been before. "Your computers are very smart," Tejo continued. "But they think in one direction. They were given a starting point, and they worked from there. They never questioned that starting point. They never wondered if the whole puzzle was oriented wrong from the beginning." The cipher was now completely upside down. What had been the top was now the bottom. What had been the front was now the back. For a moment, nothing happened. The cipher just floated there, looking exactly the same as before. Then Yuna gasped. The shape was changing. But it was not the wild, random changing from before. This was something different. The twisted star was unfolding. Its many points were pulling inward, simplifying, becoming something new. The counselors moved closer. Their eyes were fixed on the cipher. Some of them had their mouths open. Others had their hands pressed to their chests. The cipher continued to unfold. Layer after layer peeled away, revealing simpler shapes beneath. What had looked like chaos was actually order. Beautiful, perfect order that had been hidden by the wrong perspective. Finally, the cipher settled into its true form. It was a simple cube. A perfect cube, glowing with soft blue light. On each side of the cube were symbols. Not the complex, impossible patterns from before. These were simple marks. Letters, maybe. Or numbers. Something that could be read. Something that could be understood. The room was silent. No one spoke. No one could speak. The old counselor fell to his knees. His face had gone from gray to almost white. He stared at the cube like it was a ghost. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." Mira walked slowly to the platform. She reached out her hand, but she did not touch the cube. She was afraid. Afraid that if she touched it, it would disappear. Afraid that this was a dream. "How?" she asked. Her voice cracked. "How did you know?" Tejo scratched his head. He looked a little embarrassed now that everyone was staring at him. "I did not know," he said. "I just looked at it. And something felt wrong. The way it was spinning, it was always fighting itself. Like it wanted to go one way, but something was forcing it another way. So I thought, what if I let it go the way it wants? What if I stop fighting it?" "But our computers," Myra began. "Your computers were told to solve the puzzle as it was," Tejo said. No one told them to question if the puzzle was shown correctly. They were too smart to think about something so simple. Yuna walked to stand beside Tejo. She did not know what to say. She had brought him on this mission to fix the ship's engine. She never expected this. No one could have expected this. "The symbols," Myra said, pointing at the cube. "What do they mean?" Tejo shrugged. "I do not know. I am just a mechanic. I can open things, but I cannot read them." One of the younger counselors stepped forward. She had been quiet during the entire meeting, but now her eyes were bright with excitement. "I recognize these marks," she said. "They are similar to an ancient language. Very old. From the same world where the cipher was found. We thought that language was dead. Lost forever. Can you read it?" Mira asked that the young counselor nodded slowly. "I think so. Give me time." A few hours, Maybe. I can translate it. The room erupted in noise. The counselors were talking over each other. Some were excited. Some were still in shock. The old counselor remained on his knees, staring at the cube. Mira turned to Taeho. For the first time since they had met, her eyes were not cold. They were warm, almost gentle. "You have done something that no being has done in 40 years, she said. "You have solved the eternal cipher. How do you feel?" Taeho thought about it for a moment. "Hungry," he said. "I did not eat breakfast this morning." Myra stared at him. Then she laughed. It was a real laugh, not the cold, mocking sound from before. It was the laugh of someone who has just discovered something wonderful about the universe. "Hungry," she repeated. "The human who solved the greatest puzzle in the galaxy is hungry." "I am always hungry," Taeho said. "Thinking makes me hungry." Yuna could not help but smile. This was who Taeho was. He did not care about fame or power or making history. He was a simple man with a simple heart. He saw a puzzle, and he solved it. Now he wanted food. The old counselor finally stood up. He walked slowly to Taeho. His face was unreadable. "I owe you an apology," he said. His voice was rough, like the words were hard to say. "I said humans had nothing to contribute. I said you were not ready for the alliance. I was wrong." Taeho looked at him with clear eyes. "It is okay," he said. "I have been wrong many times too. It is how we learn." The old counselor nodded. He did not say anything else. He did not need to. Mira clapped her hands, and the noise in the room stopped. "The translation will take time," she said. "Until then, our human guests will be given the finest rooms on the station. Food will be brought to them. Whatever they need, they will have." She looked at Taeho. "Whatever you need." Taeho smiled. "Just food is fine. And maybe a shower." The ship did not have hot water for the last week. Yuna put her hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "You did not have to do this. You do not even know what this means for Earth." Taeho looked at her. "I know what it means for me," he said. "It means dinner." As they were led out of the room, Yuna looked back at the cube one more time. It floated there, glowing softly, holding secrets that had been hidden for centuries. And all it took to unlock them was a mechanic who thought differently. She wondered what the translation would reveal. She wondered what knowledge was hidden inside. But mostly, she wondered about Taeho. About the simple man who looked at the impossible and saw something that no one else could see. Maybe that was what made humans special. Not their intelligence, not their technology, not their power, but their ability to see the world in ways that no one expected. As they walked through the halls of the station, Yuna noticed that the other aliens were looking at them differently now. There was no more mockery in their eyes. There was something else. Something that might have been respect, or maybe fear. The meeting room was cold. Not the kind of cold that makes you shake, but the kind that gets into your bones and stays there. Yuna sat at a long table made of smooth black stone. On the other side sat the Valoran council members. There were 12 of them, each one with different colored marks on their foreheads. High Counselor Myra sat in the center. She spoke slowly, like she was explaining something to a child. "Earth wishes to join the Galactic Alliance," she said. "But you must understand what this means. You must follow our laws. You must share your technology. You must prove that you are ready to stand beside species that have been in space for thousands of years." Yuna nodded. She had expected this. The Valorans love to make other species feel small. It was how they kept their power. "We understand," Yuna said. "Earth is ready to learn and to contribute." "Contribute?" One of the other counselors spoke. He was older than the others, with deep lines on his gray face. "What can humans contribute?" You have been in space for only 200 years. You still fight wars among yourselves. You still destroy your own planet. What do you have that we need? Yuna kept her voice calm. We are creative. We adapt quickly. We have survived many challenges that should have ended us. We may be young, but we are strong. The old counselor made a dismissive sound. Creativity, adaptation, these are words. Show us something real. Yuna did not know what to say. She looked around the room, searching for the right words. That was when she noticed that Taeho was not sitting at the table. He had wandered off during the meeting. She found him standing near the wall, looking at a large screen that showed the eternal cipher. The screen displayed data, alongside the image, numbers, graphs, lines of code in alien languages. It was everything the Valorans had collected about the cipher in 40 years of study. Myra followed Yuna's eyes. Your mechanic seems more interested in our puzzle than in these important discussions. I apologize, Yuna said quickly. Taeho, please come back to the table. Taeho did not move. He was staring at the screen, his head tilted to one side. His eyes moved across the data, but Yuna knew he could not read the alien languages. He was looking at something else. What are these lines? Taeho asked, pointing at the screen. Myra sighed. Those are the mathematical models our computers have created. They show all possible solutions to the cipher. There are more than 10 trillion possibilities. Our computers have tested each one, and none of them worked. Taeho asked. No. Taeho scratched his head. Then maybe the answer is not one of those possibilities. The room went quiet. The counselors looked at each other. The old one who had spoken before leaned forward. That is impossible, he said. The computers have mapped every possible solution. Every angle. Every pattern. Every combination. If the answer existed within those possibilities, we would have found it. We have run the calculations 1,000,000 times. We have used the most powerful machines in the galaxy. The answer does not exist within our models. Taeho shrugged. Then your models are wrong. The counselors started talking at once. Their voices were angry. Yuna stood up and walked quickly to Taeho. Please, she whispered. Do not say things like that. These are very important people. You will make them angry. But I am right, Taeho said. He was not trying to be rude. He was just stating what he believed. If they have tested every answer and none of them worked, then they are looking in the wrong place. It is simple. Myra raised her hand, and the other counselors went quiet. She stood up and walked over to where Taeho was standing. She was much taller than him. She looked down at him with her large black eyes. Simple, she said. You think our greatest challenge is simple. I did not say the puzzle is simple, Taeho said. I said the logic is simple. If the answer is not in your models, then your models are wrong. That is not complicated. Our models are based on the mathematics of 12 civilizations. They have been checked and rechecked by the greatest minds in existence. They cannot be wrong. Taeho looked up at her. He was not afraid. He did not feel small in front of this powerful alien. He was just confused. Why not? He asked. Mira opened her mouth to answer, but no words came out. The question was so simple, so basic, that she did not know how to respond. Our mathematics is perfect, she finally said. No mathematics is perfect, Taeho said. Mathematics is just a tool. It is only as good as the person using it, or the computer. If your tool does not work, you need a different tool. The old counselor stood up. This is ridiculous. We do not need to listen to a mechanic tell us about mathematics. The eternal cipher is beyond human understanding. It is beyond the understanding of most species. The fact that your people cannot even grasp the complexity of our problem shows why humans are not ready for the alliance. Yuna felt her face grow hot. She wanted to defend Taeho, but she also knew that fighting with the council would end the mission. She needed to be careful. Perhaps we should return to our discussion about the alliance terms, she said. But Taeho was not finished. He walked closer to the screen and pointed at the image of the cipher. Can I see the real thing again? He asked, not the picture. The real one. Myra stared at him for a long moment. There was something in her eyes. Not anger. More like curiosity. She was trying to understand this strange human who did not seem to know his place. Why? She asked. Because pictures lie, Taeho said. When I fix an engine, I do not look at a picture of the engine. I look at the engine itself. I touch it. I listen to it. The picture can tell you some things, but not everything. The eternal cipher is not an engine. Everything is an engine, Taeho said. Everything has parts that work together. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a way it is supposed to move. If you understand how something wants to move, you can understand how to fix it. The counselors whispered to each other. Some of them looked annoyed. Others looked interested. The old one looked like he wanted to throw Taeho out of the station. Myra was quiet for a long time. She studied Taeho like he was a puzzle himself. Very well, she said at last. We will show you the cipher. Not because we believe you can solve it, but because I want to see what happens when a human mind meets something it cannot understand. She turned and walked toward the door. Yuna grabbed Taeho's arm. What are you doing? She whispered. This is dangerous. If you fail, they will never let Earth join the alliance. Taeho looked at her with honest eyes. I do not know if I can solve it, but I want to try. Do you not want to know what is inside? Yuna thought about it. She did want to know. Everyone wanted to know. The eternal cipher had been a mystery for 40 years. What knowledge was hidden inside? What power? Fine, she said. But please be careful. They followed Myra through the hallways of the station. More aliens stopped to watch them pass. Word had spread quickly. The human mechanic wanted to look at the eternal cipher. It was entertainment for them. A joke. When they reached the room with the cipher, it looked different than before. The light from the floating shape was brighter. It twisted faster, like it knew someone was coming. Taeho walked to the platform and stood directly beneath it. He looked up at the cipher. The light reflected in his eyes. It is beautiful, he said. Myra stood beside Yuna. Your mechanic is strange. Yes, Yuna agreed. He is. Taeho walked in a slow circle around the platform. He looked at the cipher from every angle. He crouched down and looked at it from below. He stood on his toes and looked at it from as high as he could. The counselors watched him with mixed expressions. Some were bored. Some were amused. The old one had his arms crossed and a frown on his face. Taeho stopped walking. He tilted his head to one side, then to the other. He closed one eye, then the other. What is he doing? The old counselor asked. I do not know, Myra said. Taeho stood very still. He was staring at the cipher with a look of deep concentration. Minutes passed. No one spoke. Then, slowly, a smile appeared on his face. It was small at first. Then it grew wider. And then he laughed. A simple, honest laugh, like a child who had just understood a joke. Oh, he said. I see it now. The room went silent. Every eye turned to him. You see what? Mira asked. Taeho looked at her, still smiling. The answer. It is so simple. I cannot believe no one saw it before. The spaceship was old. It made strange sounds when it moved through the stars. Yuna sat in her small room and looked out the window at the darkness of space. She was tired. The journey from Earth had taken 3 months, and she missed the smell of rain and the taste of real food. She was 34 years old. and worked for the Earth government as a diplomat. This was her first mission to meet the Valoran Council. The Valorans were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They had been traveling through space when humans were still living in caves. They looked down on humans. They thought Earth people were too young, too simple, too emotional. But Earth needed friends in the galaxy. There were dangers out there, other species that were not so kind. So Yuna was sent to make peace and build trust with the Valorans. She was not alone on the ship. Her assistant was a man named Teho. He was 28 years old and worked as a mechanic. He fixed things. That was his job. He had never gone to a fancy school. He had learned everything from his father, who fixed cars back in the small town where they grew up. Te-Ho was brought on the mission because the spaceship was old and broke down often. Someone needed to keep it running. He did not understand politics or diplomacy. He did not know how to talk to aliens. He just knew how to make broken things work again. Now like Teho. He was simple and honest. He said what he thought. He did not play games with words like the politicians back home. When he was confused, he said he was confused. When he was hungry, he said he was hungry. There was something nice about that. The ship shook as it came out of faster than light travel. Yuna stood up and walked to the window. In front of her was the Valoran station. It was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. It floated in space like a metal planet, with lights covering every surface. Ships moved around it like tiny fish around a whale. "We are here," said the ship computer. Te-Ho came into her room. He was wiping his hands on a dirty cloth. There was oil on his face. "The engine is fixed," he said. "It should hold until we go back home." "Thank you," Yuna said. "Are you ready?" Teho looked out the window at the massive station. His eyes went wide. "That is big," he said. "Very big." Yuna smiled. "Yes, Teho. Very big. I do not know if I should go out there," he said. "I am just a mechanic. What if I say something wrong? What if I make the aliens angry?" Yuna put her hand on his shoulder. "Just stay quiet and follow me. You do not need to talk to anyone. Just be there in case something on the ship breaks." Teho nodded, but he still looked nervous. The ship landed inside the station. The doors opened, and Yuna stepped out first. The air smelled strange. It was too clean, like a hospital. The lights were bright blue, and the walls were made of some kind of metal she had never seen before. A group of Valorans was waiting for them. They were tall, almost 2 meters, with gray skin and large black eyes. They had no hair, and their fingers were long and thin. They wore white robes that touched the floor. The one in front stepped forward. She had golden marks on her forehead, which meant she was important. "I am High Counselor Myra," she said. Her voice was soft but cold. "Welcome to our station, humans." Yuna bowed her head a little. "Thank you, High Counselor. I am Yuna, diplomat of Earth. This is my assistant, Teho." Myra looked at Teho. Her large eyes studied him like he was a bug under a glass. "A mechanic," she said. "You bring a mechanic to a diplomatic meeting." "Our ship is old," Yuna said. "We need him." Myra made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Humans in their old ships. Your species is so young, so behind. It is a wonder you made it to the stars at all." Yuna kept her face calm. She was used to this. The Valorans always talked like this. They thought they were better than everyone else. Maybe they were. They had technology that made Earth look like a child playing with toys. But Yuna knew that being strong and being wise were not the same thing. "We are honored to be here," she said. Myra turned and began to walk. "Follow me. The council is waiting. We have much to discuss." They walked through long hallways. Other aliens passed them. Some looked at the humans with interest. Others ignored them completely. Tejo stayed close to Yuna. He looked at everything with wide eyes, like a child in a new place. They entered a large room. It was round, with a high ceiling. In the center of the room was a platform, and above the platform floated something strange. It was a shape made of light. It twisted and turned, changing form every second. Sometimes it looked like a cube, sometimes like a star, sometimes like something that had no name. What is that? Tejo whispered. Yuna did not know. She had never seen anything like it. Myra stopped and turned to face them. For the first time, there was something other than coldness in her eyes. There was frustration, maybe even fear. That, she said, is the eternal cipher. It is the reason you are here. Other members of the council entered the room. They stood in a circle around the platform, all watching the strange floating shape. For 40 years, Myra continued, we have tried to solve this puzzle. We have used our greatest computers. We have asked the brightest minds from 100 worlds. Every species in our alliance has tried. All have failed. Yuna looked at the cipher. It hurt her eyes to watch it change. What happens if it is solved? She asked. Myra was silent for a moment. We do not know. The cipher was found on a dead world, left behind by a species that disappeared long ago. We believe it contains knowledge, technology, power, but we cannot open it. And you want humans to try? Mira made that strange laughing sound again. No, we do not expect you to solve it. No one can solve it. We tell you about this because all new members of our alliance must know. It is a test of humility, a reminder that the universe has secrets that even the greatest minds cannot unlock. Yuna understood. This was not really about solving the puzzle. This was about showing humans their place, showing them that they were small, that the galaxy had problems too big for them to understand. Tejo stepped closer to the platform. He tilted his head and watched the cipher spin and change. Can I look at it? He asked. Myra stared at him. You? The mechanic? I like puzzles, Tejo said simply. The Valorns in the room made quiet sounds. Some of them were laughing. A mechanic wanted to look at the eternal cipher, the puzzle that had defeated civilizations. It was a joke to them, but Mira waved her hand. Go ahead, look, it will not matter. Tejo walked up to the platform. He stood there, his hands in his pockets, watching the shape twist and turn in the air. Yuna watched him. She did not know why, but something felt different. Something in the room had changed. The cipher kept spinning. The Valorans kept watching. And Tejo just stood there, tilting his head, looking at the puzzle like it was a broken engine he needed to fix.